Well, negotiators have spent 2.5 years trying to agree the rules around the land use sector, which come under the hideously ugly acronym of LULUCF. And this is really what governs logging, and a very large part of the effort of those negotiators has been spent focusing on logging. What's emerged is what you could only describe as a corrupt consensus by Annex I countries to create a massive logging loophole. Now, before I go to the details of that, the task here really is to try and resolve these, but what are the possible outcomes? We see three possible outcomes. Either there's a desire to actually do something about this and to close these loopholes. There's a consensus continuing to emerge which would allow those loopholes to be formalised and enshrined, or a third option, which is that negotiators will keep negotiating on these issues for the rest of the year. For us and for NGOs everywhere, this issue has been complex, and it's been very hard to get cut-through messaging for the media. But what's proposed here isn't in the least bit subtle. It's nothing short of a reversal of the whole presumption of the UNFCCC, a presumption which is that the UNFCCC's purpose is the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Instead, Annex I countries are rapidly settling on a solution which would allow them to increase logging, which will increase net emissions from Annex I forests without having to account for those emissions. This problem is not trivial. 400 megatons of additional emissions per year would be coming from those countries as a result of this loophole. Let me put it in some perspective for you. This is approximately the same as all of the emissions of Spain, about 70% of the emissions from Australia, and just under half of the emissions from Germany. So, who are the big winners under this lottery bonanza that's being proposed? Okay, at the top of the list of countries we'd like to shame over this issue, we have Japan. It gets about 80 megatons. Germany, who has had a proud history of forest conservation and management, stands to gain 75 megatons of loopholes by abandoning effectively their sustainable management policies that they've had in place for nearly 200 years. Of course, Australia, my own country, is a major beneficiary. It looks like it'll get about 50 megatons. And then in order, you've got New Zealand, Finland, Austria and Sweden. Now, you've heard us talk about these countries for a number of years. So the driving force behind these proposals are the people who are looking for an easy way out. The biggest driver for this outcome is the desire by many of these countries to burn forests to generate electricity and pretend that this doesn't impact on the atmosphere. In addition, all of this increased logging will have a massive and increasing effect on the biodiversity in the forests in those countries. One of the amazing ironies of all of this is that what Annex I countries are asking for here is completely in the opposite direction of what they've been expecting non-Annex I countries to deliver in terms of RED. RED is the reduction of emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. So they're asking for that. At the same time, they're asking to be allowed to increase their emissions from logging and not pay the costs of that in terms of their accounts. This is an absolute perversity. We're proposing that we really need to relook at all of this and are putting forward two simple propositions. One, is that we need to establish a principle that the land use sector, particularly the forest sector, should actually fix on the principle that the outcome is an outcome of a net reduction in emissions from that sector. And secondly, these countries hold a very large part of the greenhouse gas reservoirs in these forests and other natural ecosystems. And there should be established under the Kyoto Protocol the ability to actually protect those gas reservoirs. So to conclude, we absolutely support the need for rules before targets. We've been saying that to you all for the last 18 months. But that doesn't mean we support bad rules or a worse outcome than the status quo. Thank you very much.